Hiking has arguably become the most popular activity in 2020. But as more and more people take to the trails, rescues are on the rise in national parks, putting a strain on resources. In Utah, a mysterious monolith appeared, sparking all kinds of theories, and just as people were rushing to be some of the first to snap a photo with it, it disappeared. The National Park Service finds itself in the midst of a $270 million wrongful death lawsuit after a woman lost her life in one of the most shocking ways I've ever heard of, and funding for the Great American Outdoors Act has been distributed. It's time for this month's National Park News. I'm Jason Epperson, and here on the RV Miles channel, we take out the time once a month to round up the latest in national park news, which you can also hear on our weekly America's National Parks podcast, celebrating the people, places, and wildlife that make up the unique history of the over 400 national park sites across the country. You can find the America's National Parks podcast on any podcast app. We kick off the news this month with reporting from Jillian Brazel in the New York Times entitled, "As Hiking Surges During the Pandemic, So Do Injuries." The name pretty much says it all. With some parks seeing unprecedented visitation numbers in 2020 and hiking soaring in popularity, trails of all types are seeing more traffic than ever before, resulting in an increased number of injuries and deaths. 3 hikers died in 6 days in the White Mountains of New Hampshire in September alone. A hiker in Mount Rainier National Park in Washington who encountered a whiteout was revived after his heart stopped for 45 minutes. And a woman who went missing for 2 days on Mount Whitney in California died from her injuries after being rescued in November. Public lands are wild places, and trails, like the ever-popular Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, are often no more than a narrow ledge, with sometimes a chain between you and the bottom of the mountain. Increases in injuries in remote areas have put a larger burden on small remote hospitals who are already dealing with the difficulties of COVID-19. The landmark Great American Outdoors Act that was signed into law earlier this year in order to stave off the damage caused by the massive maintenance backlog on federal lands required the Department of the Interior to submit a list of projects for congressional approval within 90 days. But after submitting a vague, hastily prepared list of areas for expenditures in October, we now finally have some clarity on the projects the agency intends to tackle in its first year of funding. $1.6 billion will be spent on over 160 projects, 99 of which fall under the Bureau of Land Management. The National Park Service plans to tackle some 50 projects on its punch list. As expected, much of the work will happen on the many roadways managed by the Park Service. The crumbling Lewis River Bridge at Yellowstone's southern entrance will be rehabilitated or rebuilt, and the Scenic Loop Road at Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which suffers regular collapses, will be rebuilt. At Glacier, the final 9.3 miles of the Going to the Sun Road will be rehabbed, and the bridge over McDonald Creek will be rebuilt. In North Carolina, over 75 miles of the Blue Ridge Parkway will be reconstructed. Parts of campgrounds will be rehabilitated at Sequoia, Yosemite, Rocky Mountain, and Mount Rainier National Parks. The Marble Colonnade on the Jefferson Memorial in D.C. will be restored. New maintenance facilities will be built at Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and the Mammoth Cave Hotel will get a new roof. The Great American Outdoors Act uses revenues from energy leases on federal land to provide up to $1.9 billion a year for 5 years in maintenance for critical facilities and infrastructure in our national parks, forests, wildlife refuges, recreation areas, and American Indian schools. As much as federal funding was desperately needed in national parks, many of the major projects that are undertaken in our treasured places happen due to the tireless efforts of the park's partner charitable organizations. That's very evident this year at Yosemite, where the Yosemite Conservancy has raised and provided $14 million for projects that range from education and research to shovel and hammer. Projects include studies of peregrine falcon nesting, yellow and red-legged frogs in the high country and the valley, and the monarch butterfly habitat in the valley will be expanded by removing and replacing non-native plants. The Conservancy is also funding repairs on popular trails and installing boardwalks over delicate habitats. The husband of a Ugandan woman who was killed by a loose gate at Arches National Park is suing the National Park Service for $270 million, with the claim stating that the Park Service knew about the dangers of the loose gate and for want of an $8 lock, a life could have been spared. 25-year-old Esther Nakajigo was a human rights activist who at age 17 started a nonprofit community healthcare center providing free reproductive health services, earning her an award from the United Nations and an appointment as Uganda's ambassador for women and girls. She won numerous other humanitarian awards in her short career and created a popular reality television series aimed at empowering young mothers. The couple traveled to Arches to celebrate their one-year anniversary of meeting when a heavy wind gust caused the unsecured gate arm to pierce their vehicle. Nakajigo was killed instantly. The gates, made of metal poles with spear-like ends, are used at many park facilities across the country. In 1980, a man was impaled by a similar unsecured gate in a California national forest. Nakajigo's family plans to use any restitution money to continue her life's work. A gray wolf wearing a radio collar was shot and killed illegally in Grand Teton National Park recently. A park release said that the black-colored wolf was found dead on October 26 near the Pilgrim Creek trailhead. Rangers are seeking information that could lead to the arrest and conviction of the individual responsible. The illegal taking of wildlife in a national park is subject to a fine of up to $5,000 and up to 6 months imprisonment. It's also a violation to aid or assist in the illegal taking of wildlife and is also subject to the same fines and penalties. If you have any information, you can anonymously call or text the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch tip line at 888-653-0009. Commercial vehicles have become a problem on the Mississippi section of the Natchez Trace Parkway, despite increased signage and enforcement. The parkway is not wide enough for large trucks, and the roadbed was never built for their weight. On November 18th alone, 6 semi-trucks were cited at milepost 250. The road was intended for scenic drives, and its poor condition is caused in part by overweight vehicles. Finally, an incident on Bureau of Land Management land in the Red Rocks of Utah has sparked fervor across the nation. It may not be a National Park Service site, but I couldn't help but mention the strange obelisk that appeared in the middle of nowhere. Researchers tracking bighorn sheep via helicopter discovered the 10-foot-tall metal column in a remote location, but kept the location under wraps in order to discourage people from getting lost or stranded searching for it. That didn't last long. The location was discovered, and after a frenzy of tourists trying to get a photo op, the monolith disappeared as mysteriously as it arrived at some point over Thanksgiving weekend. The Utah Department of Public Safety's Facebook post sharing images of the installation said they can't comment on active investigations, but would like to remind public land visitors that using, occupying, or developing the public lands or the resources without a required authorization is illegal, no matter what planet you're from. That's it for this episode of News from the Parks. If you learned something from this video, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Let's read some comments from our recent video on Winnebago's latest offerings. Great job, very informative. My favorite is the Echo, but no way I could handle the price. I am a new subscriber. The Echo's listed at $165,000. I think you're probably able to pick it up for about $125 or so, but yeah, it's pricey. Great job as always. The Echo looks awesome. I do still love my updated 2004 Bounder that's paid for. Nothing beats free from a bank loan. Thanks for watching, Don. Nice. I can't stand having 3 couches in some models and no desk. Even 1 couch and a desk is much better. Lots of desks are on the way. I also don't understand the massive fifth wheels with 3 sofas and no place to do any work. I like the looks of the Echo, except it uses a cassette toilet, and I'm not at all sure I could lift that to empty. That's a good point, and I'm not crazy about a cassette toilet either. I'd probably personally swap it out for a Nature's Head, but that's just me. The Echo sounds like a good possibility. If I eventually decide to downsize from my Winnebago 27Q, I would want a real RV toilet, and I think I'd change out the dinette table. So they are planning on a larger model, I think a 18-inch longer model of the Echo that will have a regular RV toilet. So it's going to have a little different layout as well, and I think it might even have a pop-top roof. Practical question, would you need to dry the shower before closing it off to prevent mold or mildew? This is the closest thing to a wet bath I've ever considered. I have no idea. I'm guessing that I would want to at least roughly dry it down. Watch YouTube 30 and a Wake Up. He bought a Travado National Park Edition, and he reveals how his sink is literally falling out of the wall, among other issues, in just 90 days. I'd say that's pretty poor quality control. There are issues with every brand. It is like buying a house, and like I said in that video, I feel like Winnebago has pretty decent quality, but every brand is going to have issues when you buy. You want to get a private inspector to look at any RV that you buy, and you're going to have a punch list of stuff that's going to need to be fixed right after you buy any brand new RV. I like the functionality of the Echo on the inside, but it's hands down one of the ugliest things I've seen in quite a while. Kind of makes me laugh a little every time I see it. It's not going to win any beauty contest, but it is just packed with functionality, and I think that's what they were going for. Paul, referring to the Echo, says leisure travel vans must be worried. I think it's an entirely different thing. I think leisure travel vans are kind of like a luxury cruiser. They're also full of functionality, but they're targeting a whole different audience. Let's work on those jump cuts. It's distracting. Welcome to YouTube. You need to do your homework. It does not have 40 gallons of propane. It has two 20-pound tanks, 4.6 gallons each, total of 9.6 gallons. Yeah, I know, I said gallons instead of pounds. I was thinking about water tanks. I'm sorry, it is 40 pounds of propane, two 20-pound bottles. Leave a comment below on the National Park News, and I'll try to get to some of them on the next video. See you next time.